Our Belgian Grand Prix F1
driver
ratings. So let's dive straight into it, shall we, and begin with Kevin Magnussen. Qualified 17th, started 17th, finished 14th. I am going to give Kevin Magnussen a 6 out of 10. Haas were horrendous this weekend. Awful, dreadful. And I'm giving K-Mag a bit more of, rather than just straight down the middle 5, he was on a 1-stop. He beat a few cars behind, beat his teammate, which is not usual for K-Mag. And yeah, I think he slightly outperformed where that Haas was, and that was nowhere near the points.
I've also gone for a 6 out of 10 for Kevin Magnussen. Yeah, just had a decent race when 14th is just kind of where Haas are. So I can't give him straight down the middle because I think he has maybe over-delivered a little bit there.
The fans gave K-Mag a 5. For those of you that know me will know that I have always been a massive gamer and have been pretty much all of my life. This is why I'm so excited to say that this video has been sponsored by War Thunder, which is available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation and Mac.
War Thunder is a free-to-play, large-scale multiplayer action game where ground vehicles, aircraft and naval vessels fight in dynamic battles at locations all around the world.
Thanks so much, Tommy. Just look at the graphics, physics and sound available in this game, which is constantly improving. You can play War Thunder whichever way you want. Fancy being aggressive and breaking through the front line in a tank? Or how about participating in fighter battles in the clouds? The choice is yours.
There's been a new update called Seek and Destroy recently, featuring aviation from the Benelux, new missiles with active radar homing, dozens of improvements based on community requests, and 2 new maps for intense aerial and naval battles.
Download War Thunder for free by using the link in the description. All new players and those who haven't played War Thunder for half a year or more will receive some special bonuses. Rentals for the P-40E1 aircraft and M4 tank for a week, along with free unique skins for them, a special decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, 3 premium vehicles for free, a week of premium account and even more gifts. Hurry, the American vehicle bonus season will end soon. Nico Hülkenberg qualified 16th, started 16th, finished 18th.
I have gone for a 4 out of 10 for Nico Hülkenberg. I know he qualified ahead of Kevin Magnussen, and maybe he's a victim of his own kind of brilliant qualifying, but in a wet quali, I know he's kind of put where, like, with his teammate, but I expected maybe something better from him. And then he's had a pretty poor race where he himself said that he didn't have any pace and stuff. So to finish in 18th, not good. So I've gone for a 4 for Nico.
I have also gone for a 4 out of 10. It was a disappointing weekend for Hülkenberg. We do expect him to beat K-Mag on most occasions. As you say, with changeable conditions, we've seen some incredible qualifyings from him in the past, and this was not one of them. So a 4 out of 10 from me. And the fans gave him a 5, so the same as K-Mag. Intriguing. Zhou Guanyu qualified 20th, started 19th, but was penalised, but Sonoda was penalised more, and then did not finish the race. 4 out of 10 for Zhou Guanyu, and I know Tommy's probably going to give him less, but I'm not, because he actually claimed that he's not running the same upgrades as Valtteri Bottas, and qualifying P20, what a performance. But he is in a dustbin. I think it was more of a Valtteri Bottas masterclass in qualifying, and so I'm not going to give him any less than a 4, just purely because it's not like that Sauber is supposed to be anywhere other than the back anyway. So
I've gone for a 3 out of 10 for Zhou Guanyu, and I know he's not done much of the race, but yeah, qualifying that far off everyone else is interesting. You know, you did the qualifying podcast with Max Futrell, and he gave a very interesting sort of chat about how you kind of think that rain would be the great leveler, but actually when your confidence is so rock bottom, it can actually make it even worse. And I feel like that's exactly what's happening and happened with Zhou Guanyu, because he was way off in qualifying off the back of the pack.
The fans gave Zhou a 3. Valtteri Bottas qualified 14th, started 14th, finished 15th.
I have gone for 6 out of 10. A very Sauber performance again, where he's just in the midfield, maybe over-delivering. He might be the absolute GOAT and driving just as well as he did on some of his best days at Mercedes, but he is driving definitely the worst car. Still no points for Sauber.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 as well for Valtteri. I think it was a decent performance. It would have been a much higher grade, I think, actually, had he just taken some initiative as a driver and gone, well, I'm not going to pit with 8 laps to go. He did say after the race that it wasn't likely, probably, that they would have had a points finish anyway, but also said that they could have finished a couple of places higher. So it was just like giving up, which I was a little bit disappointed to see, as you would have seen on the Twitch watch-along, of just a very, very bizarre decision from Sauber, but also for Bottas to allow that to happen as well. Reason number 1 of 5,000 as to why Carlos Sainz did not go to Sauber. The fans gave Valtteri Bottas a 5. Yuki Tsunoda qualified 18th, started 20th, and finished the race in 16th. It is going to be a straight down the middle 5 out of 10 for Yuki Tsunoda. A very anonymous weekend. Of course, he did have to start from the back after having a 60-place penalty, and he was actually quite funny throughout the weekend with little comments and, just a little bit more Yuki Tsunoda personality coming out, which I like to see. But personality on the track was very, very bland, very sort of PG, wasn't it? It was a pretty anonymous weekend, to be honest, for Yuki. Didn't make much progress after starting at the back and just struggled most of the weekends. That's why I've gone for a 5.
How dare you say he didn't make much progress? He was up 44 places, I'll have you know. Yuki Tsunoda, have gone for a 5, though. It was very anonymous. Of course, jokes aside with the penalty, he starts at the back and he can still do something because the V-carb in Daniel Ricciardo's hands as well was looking pretty good. So there was an opportunity to do something, but his race just never really got going or anything really particularly interesting happened. So they always go a little bit different with strategy, and I dare say that maybe other than Pierre Gasly's Monza win, rarely works.
Indeed, the fans gave Yuki Tsunoda a 5. Daniel Ricciardo qualified 13th, started 13th, finished 10th.
I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Daniel Ricciardo. I think it was a much better performance. We know now that it wasn't enough to convince Red Bull to oust Perez and put him in the seat. But the fact that he got screwed a bit in qualifying, maybe he could have got even more points on the board if he hadn't have had that terrible qualifying strategy, if you like, and started higher up because he was looking very quick in those wet conditions. Then delivered a points finish, but maybe he could have got Ocon and maybe Alonso with a better strategy, because they did look like they were there or thereabouts this weekend, but still a good result to get P10.
Certainly, I've gone for an 8 out of 10 as well. A points finish is obviously very good for VCarb, and they are picking it up left, right and centre at the moment and doing very well in the Constructors' Championship. I can't go any higher than an 8, because obviously he was promoted into the points after Russell's disqualification, but still a solid race for sure. Made a lot of progress, making some moves, and let's see what can happen at Zandvoort when we get back from the summer break. The fans gave Daniel an 8 as well. Logan Sargent qualified 19th, started 18th, finished 17th. For Logan Sargent, I am going for a 4 out of 10. Just another Logan Sargent weekend. To be honest with you, we've not seen one stellar performance from him where he's outperformed Alex, and it still continues to be that way. He tried to claim that he was helping Alex ahead in his second medium stint by holding people up. I mean, I think that he was naturally holding people up anyway, so I'm not sure it was an active decision for Williams to deploy Logan Sargent, but either or, it's a 4 out of 10. It's just another subpar weekend for Logan.
Yeah, I've also gone for a 4. I guess the only positive he can take is that he's not like having these moments where, even if it's not in the race but in qualifying or practice, having smashes and costing the team. But of course, now we know that Sainz is going there, it doesn't matter anyway, because it's going to be very difficult for him to get a drive unless Alpine are feeling particularly bold.
The fans gave Logan a 4 out of 10 as well. Alex Albon qualified 11th, started 10th, finished 12th.
I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for Alex Albon. What I will say is that Alex Albon will be a lot easier driver to rate when he is alongside Carlos Sainz and has a more comparable teammate, that we know if actually, he is the next Ayrton Senna and doing unbelievable things, or if it is just because his teammate has been woeful. So he's done a good job to qualify as high up as he did and finish where he did, when I do think that Williams really are one of the worst cars on the grid. So that's why I've given him a 7.
Okay, I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Alex Albon. I'm not convinced the Williams is that horrendous. I genuinely don't. I think that Logan just makes it look like Alex is carrying this team to places it shouldn't be. But I think when we see Carlos Sainz go there, we're going to see that the Williams is actually, well, it's not as bad as the Sauber, let's put it that way, and it does deserve to be in the midfield. But yeah, that being said, Alex obviously made a good start, but lost some positions and ended up finishing 12th, and he sort of blamed it on not having upgrades all year, which doesn't help either when it comes to car performance. But yeah, I'm going to stick with a 6, and the fans gave Alex a 6 as well. Esteban Ocon qualified 10th, started 9th, finished 9th. It is a 9 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon for me. He made overtakes on Gasly, Alonso, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Albon, Ricciardo. The man was on the move. I don't feel like we saw all of them, but he was on the move. So yeah, that's why I've gone for a 9, because I'm not sure Ocon could have done a huge amount more, even though he himself said after the race that maybe they could have finished a position higher up had the team executed slightly differently, but I still think it was a great performance.
I do as well. I've gone for a 9 out of 10. His weekend was compromised as well when he didn't even get out in FP1, which always makes it more difficult. So the fact that he has outshone his teammate, got Alpine some points again after an absolutely abysmal run that they've had is very impressive, and just again showing that despite what most people think, he does deserve to be in Formula 1 and have a seat next year.
And the fans gave Ocon an 8. Let's go to Pierre Gasly now. Qualified 12th, started 12th, finished 13th.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. I know he's been beaten by his teammate, but I don't think the Alpine was particularly amazing. So he's not done a bad job for a hit to warrant like a 5 or a 4, which is why he's getting a 6. But obviously when you look at what his teammates done, points were possible. So it's one of those kind of performances where it's okay, better than okay, and not bad, but could have done better.
Yeah, I have gone for a 7 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt of what he said after the race, where he had an engine problem and was losing 7/10 down the straight every lap with an engine temperature issue. So I don't think you can compare apples with apples when it comes to Ocon and Gasly there. And he was also complaining that his steering wasn't straight and things like that. So I think Gasly did pretty well to finish 13th considering all of that. Because if you're losing that much time, then my goodness me, you're going to be struggling around Spa. So yeah, I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for Gasly. The fans gave him a 5, and that's disgusting. That is quite frankly really harsh. Lance Stroll qualified 15th, started 15th, finished 11th. Gone for a 6 out of 10 for Lance Stroll. Went for biggest flop. Thought it was on, to be honest with you. Crashed in FP3. Very lucky to not have an absolutely catastrophic crash there. But he just sort of spun the car around in a way, I'm not sure how much control he had over it, and then just ripped the front left off. So thankfully for Stroll, it wasn't a big incident there, and qualifying was mediocre. But as with Lance Stroll, you don't see him the whole race and he finishes 11th or 12th or whatever it might be. So the Aston, I think, is still pretty terrible. So I've gone for a 6.
I've also gone for a 6 out of 10. You expect more from him, or maybe you don't. Qualifying disappointing to be down in 15th, and then he's had a quiet race, not matching Alonso, but it's nothing to sort of like slander him about, really.
Absolutely not. The fans gave Lance a 5. Fernando Alonso qualified 9th, started 8th, finished 8th.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso. He was the only person to finish in the points on a one-stop. He qualified way above where the Aston Martin probably should be, and yeah, did a really, really good job all weekend. Like, that is the Fernando Alonso that sadly we haven't seen for the last, probably quite a few races now.
Yep, I've also gone for a 9 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso, so you're not the only fanboy here. I think it was just a great drive, very quiet drive. Didn't really see him that much, but to get into Q3, outperform Lance Stroll quite significantly there, and then just literally finish the top of Formula B. There's nothing much more he could have done, so that's why I've gone for a 9. And the fans gave him an 8. Oscar Piastri qualified 6th, started 5th, finished 2nd. It is a 9 out of 10 for me for Oscar Piastri, and I think Lando's going to be slightly concerned with this teammate partnership now, because Oscar is getting better, and I think we forget this is his 2nd season. He's learning every single race weekend he goes to. So Spa was another great performance from him. 1 or 2 more laps, maybe getting past Leclerc a bit quicker, and we could be looking at Oscar as a back-to-back winner. But alas, we haven't. But it was still a fantastic drive, so I have to give him a 9.
Yeah, I've also gone for a 9 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri. Another brilliant drive. He's got that aggression, which sometimes other drivers, it can be like a bit of their downfall, and he has that aggression to be able to make moves, even though overtaking was nearish impossible. He still got that move done on Leclerc. Did the move on Russell at the start as well, and things like that. So a great job from Piastri, and he's going to be the McLaren driver going into the summer break with the most confidence, definitely.
The fans gave Oscar a 9 as well. Lando Norris qualified 5th, started 4th, finished 5th.
I have gone for a 5 out of 10 for Lando Norris. I think it was probably the worst weekend from him that I can remember in a long time. I think the move at the start in the gravel was almost inexcusable, really. Like, that was a unforced error. There was no need to do it. And the worrying thing for Lando is I think his whole demeanour all weekend was really low. You could tell that he just wanted the summer break to come quick. And yeah, it was a really difficult weekend for him, and he's just, I'm sure, just desperate for that summer break, and he needs to come back revitalized, because after what has been a very impressive season, it's been a lot trickier, and I think he's feeling a lot of the pressure and the expectation of having a very good car now, and it's sort of like dawned on him.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Lando Norris, so it's not too far from what you said. I just felt like maybe you were slightly harsher. I think that McLaren weren't the fastest car, like clearly around Spa. It was very close between them, Mercedes, Red Bull, and they were stuck as well. So I've gone for a 6 because, yeah, the start was everything. You have to treat that as a major error, and that's what he did. It was an unforced error as well. So that is why I've brought it down to a 6, and then he's been stuck. Obviously, he has made a couple of mistakes. Lap 2 wasn't the worst thing ever, because he just went straight on, and then he's just trying to push and get through. He finished right behind Verstappen and Leclerc, and yeah, a weekend again where we thought McLaren would be right at the front, and one of their drivers was, but Lando sadly wasn't. So yeah, 6 out of 10 from me, and the fans gave Lando a 6 as well. Carlos Sainz qualified 8th, started 7th, finished 6th. I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. Qualifying, he let himself down there a little bit, because I think he was on the same strategy as Charles when it came to the last run. But only managed P8 for Carlos, and then he's screwed from there, really. But he still drove a relatively strong race. Made that mistake, obviously, which dipped him in the gravel, which lost him a few seconds. But apart from that, it was all right. I don't think the Ferrari, as Charles showed, the Ferrari wasn't quite to the pace of the other front-running teams. So yeah, 7 out of 10.
I've gone for a 7 out of 10 as well for Carlos. He was, I think Carlos, to be fair to him, was quite unfortunate that he did a brilliant stint to kind of stick with everyone on the hard tyres at the start, but because everyone obviously realised that you could take those hards a lot longer later in the race, and that meant that Carlos, obviously, the one stop, he was never going to do that once he'd kind of pitted for the medium. So, yeah, it was just... It's not a bad performance. It's just kind of like Carlos picking up good points again, which is what we've seen, where he's not He's not elevating above where that car is, but doing a solid job, and that is why he's such a good driver.
And the fans gave Carlos a 7. Charles Leclerc qualified second, started first, and finished third.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. For me, it's actually very close to a 10. Is it a 10? Is it a 10? No, it's a 10. I'm giving him a 10. And a lot of people will slander me for this and call me the Charles Leclerc fanboy. But that is, in my opinion, and I think you can see that it is the fourth best car. And there'll be this whole talk of like, oh, he's dropped behind again. But I thought he was going to drop like an absolute stone in that race and be absolutely nowhere. So for him to be racing and only a few seconds off the lead when I don't think the Ferrari is anywhere near, for him to essentially get on pole position, even though it was inherited, and then get on the podium, even though it's inherited, you can't really expect any more from him. I think he is massively over-delivered in the car. And it maybe seems ridiculous to give someone a 10 when we are used to a 10 being that Charles Leclerc's winning, but he's not in a winning car. And that's what I'd argue from there.
Wow. I very much enjoyed that. I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. I think that if he'd kept Piastri at bay somehow, maybe I would have gone for a 10, but it's hard to see a driver fall away from the front pack and be like, yeah, 10 out of 10, because you're trying to then manage your expectations of what the Ferrari can actually do, and it's very hard to actually understand where that Ferrari is, especially in race trim. It was still a fantastic drive from Charles. To see him on pole position was a blessing and a curse, because obviously I knew that then 25 poles would then be on his record, and I knew for a fact he would not be adding to his win tally. But to finish on the podium after Russell's disqualification, still a great result, and hopefully Ferrari just figure their stuff out in the second half of the season. The fans gave Charles an 8, which is disgusting. George Russell qualified 7th, started 6th, disqualified. I'm giving George Russell a 10 out of 10. I can't take away from George's performance because of a 1.5 kilogram underweightness to his car, which he didn't know about. And there's so much deliberation as to whether he's actually gained time or not. Has he got an advantage? I'd say yes, because his car is literally illegal. But it was negligible. We're talking like 0.05 a lap or something like that. So George is still in the hunt, even if his car is 798 kilograms. I know that Team LH are shouting from the hills, this is the reason why George stayed ahead of Lewis, is because of that 1.5 kilograms. I would argue no. I would argue that Hamilton having a 0.05 second a lap or whatever it was advantage is still not getting him past George Russell at the end of that race. That is what I will die on that hill for. So yes, I am going for that because George still drove unbelievably. Like, that was one of the most shocking wins we've seen in a very long time, which isn't a win, obviously it's a disqualification. But at the time, it was a win. So that's what I'm judging it on. Thank you for coming to my Matt Talk.
I have gone for a 0 out of 10 for George. No, I haven't really. I've gone for a 10 out of 10 for George Russell, and it can't be anything other than a 10. I'm not trying to defend that George shouldn't have been disqualified. If he was under by a gram, whatever it is, 100 kilos, like half a kilo, whatever, you're disqualified. They are the rules. Yes, his car was illegal, but and he deserves to be disqualified, but it didn't. 1.5 kilos cannot take away from that. He saved his tyres brilliantly. He opened up La Source by running wide, which made it look like he was actually doing a bad corner, but it meant he got an amazing run down the Kemmel Straight to stay ahead of Hamilton. He was driving absolutely brilliantly, and it is a shame that he's been disqualified because it would be without doubt his best win, and he's not got many, but one of the best wins of the year, and one of the best wins we've seen in a long time. So it is a shame, but it's called driver ratings, not result ratings. So the DSQ for me is not really, like, it's not judged. And to counter, like you say, members of Hamilton's fan base that say, he would have been last and it doesn't matter and Hamilton would have won and all this stuff. Hamilton got disqualified from, I think it was Austin when he finished second, because
Yeah.
barge
And
board
Charles
was
Leclerc
it.
also got
They both got disqualified.
Yeah, to bring it up.
But do you say that Hamilton, like, if his underfloor was a little bit thicker, he'd have been last?
And we
No.
as fans can't judge that either. So to say, well, it's this, it's that, it's opinion, and this is the opinion we're giving, is that he deserves a 10 out of 10. Tommy, do you have the fan rating split?
62% gave him a 10, 28% gave him a 9, 5% gave him an 8, 1% gave him a 7, and then, to be fair, it was only 39 members of Team LH that gave him a 0, so 1.4%.
Okay, interesting. Let's now, as mentioned, George got a 10 from the fans. Let's now go to Lewis Hamilton. Qualified 4th, started 3rd, finished 1st.
It's a 10 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. He showed again that if he can get to the front early, he can win races and be unstoppable. And I know Russell obviously got ahead and got disqualified. But when we're looking at Hamilton's race, is another sensational drive. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting when we get into our mid-season drive ratings, because Hamilton was on a terrible run of form, really. Like, he was under-delivering. It was kind of like people were saying he's finished. Oh, is he too old now? And he's arguably been one of the most impressive drivers of the last 3 or 4 races now, and is in unbelievable form. Won 2 of the last 3. Yeah, he's in fantastic form, and it makes it very exciting for the rest of the season.
It does indeed. I've gone for a 10 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton as well. There's no other number that he deserves. He drove brilliantly. He got past Charles very early. He got past Perez obviously first with a good start, and then got past Charles very easily, which was saddening as a Ferrari fan. But after that, he looked completely in control. There was not, until George Russell, he looked like he was set to win and had no problems whatsoever managing the race. He even said that he had a lot of tyres left after every stint, and he was surprised to see the one less stop come in for George Russell. But that being said, Hamilton still won the race. It still would have been a 10, because I have sympathy for him that he would not have known, or he at least claimed that he didn't really know that was going to happen until it did. So Hamilton was doing everything he needed to do to win the race up until that George Russell moment. So yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 from me. A brilliant performance. And the fans also gave him a 10. Sergio Perez, qualified 3rd, started 2nd, finished 7th. It is a 4 out of 10 for Sergio Perez. Look, he had a great opportunity to do some wonderful things in the race, and I genuinely thought that he was going to be in the mix, do all right, because, not only was he starting on the front row of the grid, but it soon became apparent that it was very difficult to overtake, once again, around Spa-Francorchamps, which works very well for drivers that are towards the front of the field, you would imagine. And at the beginning of the race, it felt like Perez was just in the mix. Then he starts to fall away a little bit. It all starts to unravel. And next thing you know, he's finishing 8th on the road, which of course is promoted to 7th after Russell's disqualification. But he wasn't just finishing at the back of the pack. He was also off the back of the pack, and then was used to pit for soft tyres to get a fastest lap. I don't get it. I really don't. I genuinely thought that it was going to be a better weekend for Perez this time after qualifying, but it wasn't, so it's a 4.
I have also gone for 4 out of 10 for Sergio Perez. When Perez was doing better, it would often be qualifying that let him down, and then he would come back in the races, and obviously, the whole driver of the day meme of he'd qualify appallingly and then get to 4th, 5th or whatever and have a great result. Whereas this was the opposite of that, where you've kind of been waiting for him to have that moment where he is at the front and finally you can see what you can do. I thought, this is your chance. Red Bull look pretty good around here. He's qualified. Yes, he's qualified way off Max, but you think 2nd is where you want to be, really, starting the Belgian Grand Prix, because you get a great run, but he got muscled out by Hamilton and then just dropped all the way down. And I can't remember the exact phrase that Helmut Marko used to describe his final stint. I'm sure he said horrible or something along those lines. Pretty brutal. And it was not
completely
not good
collapsed.
Completely collapsed, yeah. So savage from Helmut Marko, and it's true. He wasn't doing that badly. He was in that Formula A pack, which is where he needs to be, and then just completely caved. So I'll go for Perez.
Not good indeed. The fans also gave Perez a 4. Max Verstappen qualified first, started 11th because of the penalty, and then finished 4th.
I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Max Verstappen. The Red Bull has definitely fallen off, and it's made it tricky for him. He wasn't flying through the field like we used to see, and of course overtaking was incredibly difficult for everyone. But he made a great start, and somehow, again, managed to extend his lead. This is exactly why he is going to be so difficult in a championship fight, even when the car isn't there and has not been good, because we saw the stat of the last 8 races. He's still leading the championship, even though the Red Bull has dropped off quite dramatically compared to the dominance that it had before. So yeah, gone for an 8.
Lovely stuff. I have also gone for an 8 out of 10 for Max Verstappen, because I was impressed by Max not only with his moves but also his demeanour. No crazy team radio antics. A lot of respect. No anger. Thank you for the point, Max Verstappen, for the crazy prediction. And thank God I didn't say it for the whole weekend, by the way, because he definitely was, I think, pretty sassy in qualifying. I think it was qualifying, actually. But either or, it was a decent weekend for Max. He still extends his championship lead, which is utterly ridiculous considering what we were expecting coming into this with his 10-place penalty. So it's an 8 out of 10, and the fans gave him an 8 as well. So who is our P1? Now this might well be a very difficult one and very controversial, potentially. My P1 is Lewis Hamilton, because Lewis Hamilton was blindsided by his own team, and I think had he been given the opportunity to one stop or to cover off George, he would have. So it's like Lewis was racing against 18 other drivers and then one anonymous one that he wasn't told about. So that's why I'm going for Lewis Hamilton, because I think he was driving incredibly well up until that point.
I've also gone for Lewis Hamilton. I think the fact that George Russell, we will never know how much difference. We've given our opinion on the fact that we think he still would have won that race, but he did have an illegal car. And I think Hamilton, despite, even if George Russell had won the race, Hamilton was the most impressive driver. The fact that, he qualified well, got past at the start, muscled his way through, and then just managed the race brilliantly. And like you say, the only reason he finished behind his teammate was because basically Russell rolled the dice big time, and it was a 6, but then exploded when he got disqualified.
Okay then, that is it. We are done. That is driver ratings finished for the Belgian Grand Prix. I hope you've enjoyed the series so far. It's nice to see a lot of love for it after I asked whether anyone actually genuinely likes this series. So please continue the love. Please continue liking if you're on YouTube, and letting us know that you do enjoy this and not that you just disagree with everything that we've ever said. Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, if you love this series, like I've said a couple of times in the podcast, we'll be doing our mid-season one as well. And that normally is quite controversial because we don't take recency bias into account, and we average up the kind of grades among the whole season. So just because one driver's doing well now, it might that like some drivers might be higher or lower than maybe we expect, just because we all forgot that people like Sergio Perez were getting podiums what feels like about 5 years ago now, but it was only a few months ago.
Exactly. Well, that is it. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your summer break, whatever you're doing, and we will still be here, ready to rumble whenever any news drops. I wonder what else.
Stay in your seat.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of Antonelli. Imagine that'll be the next thing, maybe. But thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.